Overall theme: this video takes you beyond the myths and legends of ancient Greece to explore the true struggles and complexities of daily life in the ancient world. From the harsh realities of being an ordinary citizen in Athens, to the rise of Alexander the Great and the mysteries of the Oracle of Delphi. This video offers a deep dive into the less glorified aspects of Greek history, all while contrasting the lives of the common folk with the privileged elite. Segment 1. Why it sucked to be a citizen of ancient Athens. The why it sucked to be. Daily life immersion. Imagine yourself in ancient Athens, one of the most celebrated cities of antiquity, known for its birth of democracy, philosophy, and art. The city's name is immortalized in history. But as an average citizen, your life is not the stuff of legends. Instead, it is filled with constant hardship, discomfort, and the overwhelming need to survive in a harsh, unforgiving world. The first thing you notice as you step into the streets of Athens is the noise. The market, square, or agora is a constant buzz of voices, shouts, and bartering. Merchants call out their wares: fruit, vegetables, grains, pottery, and fish, while crowds of people jostle to get a better deal. The smell hits you almost immediately, a mixture of stale sweat, fish guts, and the faint, pungent scent of human waste. The streets are narrow and winding, with few places for privacy or escape. The buildings around you are made from stone and mud brick, cramped and lacking the space and comfort we now expect. You live in small, dark homes with only a few rooms, often shared with extended family. There is no plumbing, so fetching water from the local fountain is part of your daily routine, often requiring several trips. The water in the fountain is barely clean, and the same goes for your food. Vegetables, when available, are often wilted or spoiled, and your main source of sustenance is bread and olive oil. You might be lucky enough to get some cheese or a small portion of meat, but these are rare treats, not regular meals. Without refrigeration, food spoils quickly, and you never quite know when you will have enough to eat. The lack of hygiene compounds the struggle. The streets are littered with refuse and garbage. There are no sewers or waste management, so human waste is disposed of in the open or left in pits. Diseases are common, and sanitation is poor. When a plague hits, it doesn't spare anyone. The average citizen's life expectancy is short, and any illness or injury could be fatal, given the lack of medical knowledge and practices, endless labor, and long days. Your work is grueling and never-ending. If you are a farmer, you spend your days in the fields, toiling under the hot sun. Your crops, wheat, barley, olives, must be harvested by hand, and the physical labor is backbreaking. If you work in the city, it's no easier. Perhaps you are a potter, sitting hunched over a wheel all day, shaping clay into vases, bowls, or plates. Or maybe you are a carpenter, crafting tools and furniture in a cramped workshop. Either way, you will find that there is no room for leisure. There are no breaks, no vacation days, and certainly no weekend to look forward to. The concept of free time is foreign to you. If you are fortunate enough to have a trade, you may earn a modest living, but most people do not have the luxury of choice. Farmers are at the mercy of the seasons and the gods, hoping for enough rain to yield a decent harvest. Craftsmen and merchants are often reliant on their ability to make sales, with little control over the market. And all of this work is performed without the tools or technologies we take for granted today. There are no machines to speed up your labor, and your hands will ache at the end of every day. As an Athenian, you do have a voice in the democratic system, but it is a voice that is drowned out by the noise of the powerful. Democracy in Athens was an exclusive affair, open only to male citizens born to Athenian parents. Women, slaves, and foreigners were excluded from the political process entirely. Even for those who could vote, the process was messy and fraught with tension. The assembly, where decisions about war, law, and public policy were made, could often be chaotic, with decisions swayed by the loudest voices and the influence of the wealthy few. Democracy was not a well-oiled machine, but a constant struggle for power, often decided not by reason, but by the whims of the influential. The ever-present fear of war. Perhaps one of the most oppressive aspects of life in Athens was the constant fear of war. Athens was a powerful city-state, but it was also surrounded by enemies. The Peloponnesian War between Athens and Sparta raged for decades, and each day brought the possibility of a new battle or siege. As a citizen, you might be called to fight in these wars. For a farmer, this means leaving behind your fields. For a craftsman, it means abandoning your tools. War interrupts your already difficult life, pulling you away from your work and thrusting you into the horrors of battle. Even if you are not on the front lines, the threat of invasion looms over the city like a dark cloud. You live with the knowledge that your home might be destroyed at any moment, your family separated, or worse. The city's defenses are always under construction, and every citizen is expected to be ready at a moment's notice to defend their home. Disease and injury. Without modern medicine, even the smallest injury could be life-threatening. A simple cut from a piece of pottery or a bruise from a fall could lead to a severe infection, and there is little you can do to treat it. The healing methods available to you are rudimentary at best. If you are lucky, a local healer might offer a remedy made from herbs or poultices, but these are no guarantee. The fear of illness is constant. When plagues strike, they decimate the population, and no one is safe. The streets of Athens are sometimes filled with the bodies of the dead, as disease moves swiftly through the city. Living in constant fear, despite the city's intellectual brilliance, life in Athens is not easy. You are constantly at the mercy of the elements, political instability, disease, and the threat of war. Each day is a struggle for survival, and every moment feels precarious. The very qualities that made Athens greatly intellectual and artistic, achievements, a luxury that most citizens never experience. For the average Athenian, life is about scraping by, day after day, in a world that offers little comfort and even less security. Segment 2. The Life of Alexander the Great. The biography, event narrative. Now, let us shift our focus from the struggles of the common Athenian citizen to the life of one of the most legendary figures in history, Alexander the Great. His name conjures up images of grand battles, vast empires, and legendary conquests. But while his story is filled with glory and triumph, it's also marked by personal sacrifice, loneliness, and the weight of a destiny too enormous for any one person to carry. The early years. Alexander was born in 356 BCE, the son of King Philip II of Macedon and Queen Olympias. From a young age, Alexander was immersed in the world of politics, warfare, and royal duty. His mother, Olympias, was said to have influenced his strong belief in his divine heritage, often claiming that he was the son of Zeus himself. But whether or not Alexander truly believed in his divine bloodline, he was undoubtedly driven by a sense of destiny, one that would see him conquer the known world. Growing up, Alexander was tutored by the philosopher Aristotle, one of the greatest minds of the time. The lessons he received were wide-ranging, from philosophy to science to ethics. But it was clear that Alexander's mind was sharpened for something greater. His education wasn't just intellectual. He was trained in the arts of war from a young age, learning how to command men and lead troops in battle. However, no amount of training could prepare him for the enormous burden of leadership he would bear as he ventured into his adult life, becoming king. At the age of 20, after his father's assassination, Alexander ascended to the throne of Macedon. His early reign was filled with political intrigue and power struggles, both at home and on the international stage. His first major challenge was securing his rule within Macedonia. His father had left behind a powerful army and a unified kingdom, but Alexander needed to solidify his control. It wasn't long before he began his campaign to extend the Macedonian Empire far beyond its borders. The world that Alexander inherited was one of constant warfare. The Persian Empire, under King Darius III, was the dominant power of the time. Alexander's desire for glory and conquest pushed him to take on the mighty Persians. setting the stage for a series of legendary battles that would shape history. The campaigns. Alexander's campaign began in 334 BCE with his invasion of Asia Minor. Despite facing an empire far larger than his own, he quickly proved himself a brilliant tactician and a fearless leader. His troops, though often outnumbered, followed him with unshakable loyalty, drawn by his charisma and his promise of glory. The Battle of Granicus, the first major battle of his campaign, was a resounding victory for Alexander, and it set the tone for the rest of his conquests. His most famous battle, the Battle of Issus in 333 BCE, was a turning point in his campaign. Despite being heavily outnumbered by the Persian forces, Alexander's tactical genius and sheer determination led him to victory. In the aftermath, he captured the Persian royal family and cemented his status as a formidable force. This victory gave him control over most of Asia Minor, but Alexander was not satisfied. He pressed onward, capturing key cities like Tyre and Gaza before setting his sights on Egypt and ultimately Persia itself. However, the further Alexander traveled, the more his campaign began to take a toll on him. His soldiers, who had been following him for years, grew weary of the endless wars and the ever-expanding empire. They wanted to return home, but Alexander was driven by an insatiable need to conquer. He even pushed his forces into India, where they faced fierce resistance in the Battle of the Hydaspes against King Porus. Despite the victory, the battle was hard-fought, and it marked the furthest extent of Alexander's reach. It was here, in the easternmost part of his empire, that Alexander's men refused to march any further. The weight of glory and ambition. By the time Alexander reached India, his once unshakable confidence began to crack. He had built one of the largest empires in the world, stretching from Greece to Egypt, Persia, and into India. Yet, despite his military brilliance and his awe-inspiring achievements, Alexander was haunted by a profound loneliness. His relationships with his soldiers, his generals, and even his family grew strained. Many of his companions began to question his decisions, and Alexander's temper became infamous. The toll of leading an empire so vast and varied was becoming evident, and Alexander began to grow paranoid, seeking the loyalty of his soldiers through fear and coercion. Tragically, Alexander's life was cut short in 323 BCE at the age of 32. He fell ill and died in the palace of Nebuchadnezzar II in Babylon, possibly due to a fever, though the exact cause of his death remains a subject of debate. Some historians suggest that Alexander was poisoned, but there is no definitive evidence to support this theory. His death marked the end of an era of conquest and the beginning of the slow unraveling of his empire. His generals, known as the Diadochi, fought among themselves for control of the lands he had conquered, and the great empire he had built was eventually divided into several parts. The human side of Alexander the Great, may have been one of the most successful military leaders in history. But his life was not as glamorous as the legends would have you believe. He was a man driven by ambition, but also by a deep sense of loneliness and a fear of death. As much as he desired to conquer and build a legacy, he was never able to experience the peace and contentment that often come with achievement. His life was full of battles, but also internal struggles. From the pressure of meeting the expectations of his father to the emotional toll of ruling an empire. In the end, Alexander's greatness came at a personal cost, one that ultimately led to his early demise. Segment 3: The Mystery of the Oracle of Delphi. The mystery, archaeology, culture, deep dive. As we continue our journey through the fascinating world of ancient Greece, let us now explore one of the most mysterious and revered aspects of Greek culture, the Oracle of Delphi. For centuries, the Oracle at Delphi was the most powerful religious institution in the Greek world. It was believed that the god Apollo spoke through the oracle, offering cryptic prophecies that could shape the course of nations and the lives of kings. But what was the true nature of these prophecies? Were they the work of divine intervention, or was there something more to this ancient practice? The Temple of Apollo and the sacred site, Delphi, located high on the slopes of Mount Parnassus, was not just a religious center. It was the heart of the Greek world. The site was considered so sacred that it was believed to be the navel of the world, marked by a stone known as the Amphilis. Pilgrims from all over the Greek world traveled to Delphi to seek the wisdom of the oracle. The journey itself was long and arduous, often taking weeks. And upon arriving, the visitors would enter the Temple of Apollo, where the priestess, known as the Pythia, would deliver her prophecies. The Temple of Apollo at Delphi was an architectural marvel filled with rich offerings and treasures from cities across Greece. Visitors would come to offer gifts to the god Apollo in exchange for the chance to hear the oracle's prophecies. These prophecies were not straightforward answers. They were often vague, cryptic, and open to interpretation. For example, when King Croesus of Lydia asked the oracle if he should go to war against Persia, he received the famous answer, "If you cross the river, you will destroy a great empire." Croesus, believing this prophecy meant he would defeat the Persians, did indeed cross the river and was defeated, losing his own empire. The ambiguity of the oracle's messages led to various interpretations, often leaving those who consulted it with more questions than answers. The Pythia, the priestess of Apollo. The Pythia, the high priestess of Apollo, was the central figure in the oracle's prophecies. she would enter a trance-like state, believed to be induced by inhaling vapors rising from a fissure in the earth beneath the temple. These vapors, which have been speculated to be hallucinogenic gases such as ethylene, would cause the Pythia to enter a frenzy, during which she would utter cryptic phrases. Her words were often incomprehensible and must have seemed like nonsensical ramblings to the untrained ear. It was the job of the temple priests to interpret these utterances and translate them into prophecies that could be understood by the supplicants. The Pythia-s trance-like state was central to the belief that the oracle was a direct channel to Apollo. It was thought that Apollo himself took possession of the priestess's body, using her as his mouthpiece. As the oracle was associated with Apollo, the belief in the priestess's words had a powerful influence on the lives of those who consulted her. Leaders, kings, and generals would often turn to Delphi before making important decisions, from going to war to founding new colonies. However, there remains a mystery surrounding the oracle's powers. Were the Pythia truly in a trance induced by divine forces, or was there something else at play? Modern scholars have suggested that the gases emanating from the earth may have caused altered states of consciousness. But it's equally possible that the priestesses used their position to influence events intentionally. Whether it was divine intervention or clever manipulation, the Oracle of Delphi played a critical role in shaping the course of history. The role of Delphi in Greek society. Delphi was more than just a religious site. It was a powerful political and cultural institution. In addition to offering prophecies, Delphi was also a place of communal gathering and exchange. It hosted the Pythian Games, one of the 4 major Pan-Hellenic games, which were held every 4 years in honor of Apollo. These games were a mix of athletic competitions and musical contests, drawing competitors from all over the Greek world. Delphi, therefore, was not just a place for spiritual guidance, but also a center for cultural and political exchange. The oracle's influence extended beyond individual decision-making. Cities and states would often send delegations to consult the oracle about matters of public policy, alliances, and military strategy. At times, the oracle's influence even played a role in major political decisions that shaped the fate of entire regions. For example, during the Persian Wars, the oracle famously advised the Athenians to trust in wooden walls, which was interpreted as a prophecy that the city's wooden ships would protect them from the Persian invasion. The interpretation of this prophecy led the Athenians to build a powerful naval fleet, which ultimately played a key role in their victory at the Battle of Salamis. The decline of the oracle. Despite its immense influence for over 1,000 years, the Oracle of Delphi began to lose its power in the late antiquity. As the Roman Empire spread and Christianity took hold, pagan temples and practices were suppressed. In 390 CE, the Roman Emperor Theodosius I issued an edict banning pagan rituals, and the Temple of Apollo at Delphi was eventually closed. By the 4th century CE, the oracle had ceased to be the center of power it once was. However, the mystery of Delphi has never fully faded. Were the prophecies truly divine, or were they simply the product of clever manipulation and interpretation? The answer may never be known. But the Oracle of Delphi remains one of the most enigmatic and captivating aspects of ancient Greek culture. Segment 4: The Privileged Life of Greek Elites. The social elite. Contrasting daily life in sharp contrast to the hardships faced by the common citizens of Athens and other Greek city-states. There existed an elite class who lived lives of relative luxury, comfort, and power, while the majority of Greeks labored in fields or workshops. The aristocracy and wealthy citizens of Athens and other Greek cities enjoyed privileges that set them apart in nearly every way. This segment will take you into the world of the Greek elite, offering a glimpse into the opulence, intellectual pursuits, and social intricacies that marked their lives. The luxury of wealth and power. As a member of the elite class in ancient Greece, you would live in a much different world than that of a common citizen. Instead of cramped homes made of stone or mud brick, the wealthy enjoyed spacious, beautiful houses with courtyards, finely decorated with mosaics and frescoes. You would likely have access to the finest foods, such as meat, fish, and a variety of fruits and vegetables luxuries that were rare for the common people. Banquets were an integral part of elite life, where guests reclined on couches, sipping wine, and enjoying a variety of delicacies served by slaves or servants. These gatherings were not just about indulgence, but also about socializing, discussing philosophy, and engaging in political discourse. Your clothing would be far more luxurious as well, crafted from finely woven fabrics and adorned with intricate jewelry. Unlike the rough woolen tunics of the common citizen, you would wear garments made from silk and decorated with gold or silver threads. Such clothing would not only serve as a symbol of your status, but also as an indication of your wealth and influence, intellectual pursuit, and philosophical life. As part of the elite class, you would have access to education and intellectual pursuits that were unavailable to the lower classes. Education was a privilege reserved for the sons of wealthy families. You might spend your days in the company of philosophers, teachers, and statesmen, learning from the greatest minds of the time. It is in this intellectual environment that figures like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle thrived, and their teachings shaped much of Greek thought. The elites often gathered in private symposiums where they would discuss topics such as ethics, politics, and the nature of the gods. These gatherings, though often luxurious and indulgent, were also serious intellectual affairs where the great questions of existence were debated. The wealthy citizens of Athens, for instance, had the privilege of hearing the lectures of renowned philosophers and having their lives enriched by the intellectual currents that flowed through the city. For the elite, philosophy was not just an abstract pursuit, it was a way of life. The wealthy were expected to uphold certain moral standards and contribute to the welfare of their community. However, their social position allowed them to engage in these pursuits without the constraints of the harsh daily struggles faced by the majority of the population. They had the leisure time to focus on the intellectual and philosophical development that was the hallmark of Greek society. Political power and influence. The wealth and power of the elite also gave them significant political influence. While Athens was known for its democratic system, the political landscape was far from equal. The elites, who owned the land and controlled much of the economy, had far more influence than the common citizens. They could fund military campaigns, influence political decisions, and hold prestigious offices in the government. While democracy allowed citizens to participate in political assemblies, the true power often lay in the hands of the wealthy and well-connected. As a member of the elite class, you would likely participate in the political life of your city-state. In Athens, for instance, you might serve as a strategos, a high-ranking military officer, or even hold a position in the government. Your influence could extend beyond your city-state, as the elites often played key roles in diplomatic relations, alliances, and trade agreements between Greek city-states and other powers, such as Persia or Egypt. However, the political life of the elite was not without its challenges. The constant struggle for power, the competition between rival factions, and the intrigues of the political world often led to tensions and even violence. The elite had to navigate this world carefully, balancing their personal ambitions with the ever-present threat of political rivals. In times of war or political unrest, even the wealthy were not safe from the upheaval that gripped the city. The distinction between public and private life. While the elite enjoyed considerable privileges, their lives were not without their own set of challenges. Public life, with its duties and responsibilities, could be demanding, and the expectations placed on the elite were high. In addition to their political and military roles, they were often expected to fund public works, sponsor festivals, and contribute to the welfare of the community. This could place a great deal of pressure on the wealthy, as their status required them to be seen as benefactors of the public. Private life for the elite, you would live in well-appointed homes with beautiful courtyards and gardens. Slaves would take care of household chores, allowing you to enjoy your leisure time. You might spend your days enjoying the arts, such as theater, sculpture, and poetry. The wealthy could afford to commission works of art, such as statues of gods or heroes, that would decorate their homes and public spaces. Music and theater were also integral parts of elite life, and the wealthy could attend the grand performances that took place in theaters, such as the Theater of Dionysus in Athens. However, even in the comfort of private life, there was always an awareness of status and the need to maintain one's position in society. The elites were constantly concerned with their reputation, and their lives were often dictated by the social codes of conduct that governed their behavior. These codes emphasize the importance of honor, loyalty, and the maintenance of power, and failure to adhere to these norms could lead to disgrace or downfall. The duality of Greek elite life. While the Greek elite enjoyed a life of luxury, wealth, and intellectual fulfillment, their lives were not without their own complexities. The contrasts between the intellectual pursuits of the wealthy and the grim daily lives of the common citizens could not have been starker. The elite were able to indulge in philosophy, the arts, and political power, while others toiled in fields or worked long hours in the city's workshops. Yet, the pressure to maintain one's status, the constant competition for power, and the demands of public life could make even the wealthiest individuals feel trapped in a system that required constant vigilance. In the end, the lives of the elite were marked by both privilege and responsibility. They lived in a world of comforts, but this world was built on the labor and suffering of others. The duality of their existence, luxury alongside struggle, was a defining feature of ancient Greek society, and it set the stage for the complex relationships between the powerful and the powerless, the rulers and the ruled. Conclusion of the video as we reflect on the journey through ancient Greece. From the grueling daily existence of the average citizen to the brilliance of military leaders like Alexander the Great. The mystique of the Oracle of Delphi and the opulence of the elite becomes clear that life in ancient Greece was a multifaceted experience. While myths and legends often obscure the harshness and complexity of daily life, understanding the real struggles, ambitions, and contradictions of the time offers us a more profound connection to the past. The ancient Greeks, for all their achievements, were not immune to the same challenges and imperfections that shape human existence today. Whether you were a humble farmer in Athens, a conqueror on the battlefield, or a philosopher in a private symposium, life was often marked by a mixture of aspiration, hardship, and the quest for meaning. As we leave the world of ancient Greece behind, we can carry with us a deeper understanding of the past, one that allows us to appreciate the comforts we enjoy today, even as we recognize the struggles that have shaped our history.